Hey everybody, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know what time it is in your timeline, but for me, it's morning, and so good morning. We're glad that you're here joining us for the online edition of The Gathering. Now, we are a church community that meets in Everett, Washington in our in-person physical location, and we are kind of a unique partnership between two churches that found one another and had some pretty big differences, like traditionally and like things that we did and our traditions, I suppose. But our core values were so similar, we started doing a lot of our church stuff together. And so it's Zion Lutheran Church, which is an ELCA Lutheran church, and Pathways Church, a non-denominational independent church. And I don't know, we've been, one church is sort of formally liturgical, and the other one really was very informal. But we've been able to discover some real beauty in the traditions of each other, and we're learning what it means to do life together. And if you want to learn a little bit more information about who we are, you can go to our website at everettgathering.com, and you can learn a little bit more about the story. You can read our core values, which are the things that brought us together. And so if you want to go there online, that's a great way to do that. Now, we want to say Merry Christmas. I got my my Christmas sweater on. Just to kind of like just have the festivity in the air, all right? I love this time of year. I get to wear all my ugly Christmas sweaters, and so hopefully you are ready for the Christmas season. I mean, we're right there now. I mean, you only got a couple days left. So today we're going to be talking about the Christmas spirit, and we're going to be talking through our Advent series here. We're going to be focusing on the idea of love today, and so we want to invite you to participate in that with us. Now, what we're going to be doing here over the next few moments is sort of a miniaturized version of our in-person gatherings. In our in-person gatherings, we sing some songs together, and we do some kind of liturgical elements and some informal elements. But here in the online space, our worship leader, Billy, is just going to come. He's just going to lead in one song. And then there's going to be a little reflective video, which is really good. This is a really good little video. And then I'll come back on the screen and share a message with us today for the Advent season as we get ready for Christmas. Okay, and then, at the end, we're going to do a little communion opportunity. And in our in-person gatherings, we always provide all the elements that are needed for the communion experience. And in the online space, if you would like to participate in communion, we'll carve out the space for it, but you're not going to need to get together a couple items in order to participate. First thing you'll need is something for the bread, which could be, it could be a little chunk of bread if you want, or a little cracker would work. And then you'll need something for the cup, which could be a little bit of juice, or it could be a little wine from last night's dinner that got left over. And so if you want to grab those items together, you can do that at any point. And then at the end, we'll have a little video that will play. And it's kind of short, but you could pause it at any point and just spend some time reflecting and praying if you'd like to do that. And then at the end of our time, we'll wrap everything up with some announcements of some things that are happening here at the end of the year. Okay, that's pretty much it. We got a lot to get to today, so why don't we get right to it? Billy's going to lead us in some music, and then I'll see you back on the screen in just a little bit. Take it away, Billy.
If my heart is overwhelmed and I cannot hear your voice, I'll hold on to what is true, though I cannot see. If the storms of life they come and the road ahead gets steep, I will lift these hands in faith, I will believe. I'll remind myself of all that you've done and the life I have because of your Son. 'Cause love came down and rescued me, love came down and set me free, and I am yours, I am forever yours. with hope, and every promise comes my way. When I feel your hands of grace rest upon me, staying desperate for you, God, staying humble at your feet. I will lift these hands in praise. I will believe. I'll remind myself of all that you've done, and the life I have because of your Son. 'Cause love came down and rescued me. Love came down and set me free. And I am yours. I am forever yours. Mountain high and valley low, I'll sing out, remind my soul that I am yours. I am forever yours. 'Cause I am yours. I am yours. All my days, Jesus, I am yours. 'Cause I am yours. I am yours. All my days, Jesus, I am yours. 'Cause love came down and rescued me. Love came down and set me free. I am yours. I am forever yours. Mountain high, valley low, I'll sing out, remind my soul that I am yours. I am forever yours. 'Cause love came down and rescued me. Love came down and set me free. And I am yours. I am forever yours. Mountain high and valley low, I'll sing out, remind my soul that I am yours. I am forever yours. That I am yours. I am forever yours. That I am yours. I am forever yours.
In the end, it is love that matters. All else will pass away. We need a thoughtful love, a wisdom that sees and knows more deeply, a faith that trusts in the power of God who lives beneath our wings. Ours is the age of something radically new. It is more than a reformation. It is an evolution in love. It is not simply we humans who are in evolution, but God seeks to evolve, to become more being in love, more conscious, more God at the heart of the universe. This is the truth that sets us free, the light that eludes our sight. We are the privileged bearers of transcendence. God cannot do for us what we must do for ourselves. Empty our lives of the inner clutter and noise so that we may welcome God within. Only when we allow God to be God for us can God save us, because divine love can do no other than make whole. God's love is unmanageable and unruly. It is creative, spontaneous, and novel. It slips in between our controlling urges and dwells in the unbearable wholeness of our being. What a cunning God this is, who hides in lepers and appears in a poor man carpenter turned preacher. Divine love is beyond what the human mind can imagine or invent. It is not logical or predictable. It has empowered life from the beginning and promises to stay forever because love is ever new, ever more whole, deepening the rich creativity of life's playfulness. We all have a part in this unfolding love. We are all wholes within wholes, persons within persons, religions within religions. We are one body, and we seek one mind and heart, more personal and unified in love. This urging toward oneness is an invitation to evolve the divine. We must unfold the past into the quantum moment, and let us aim toward the future. For up ahead is the Christ, rising from the dead in the darkness of night, to become for us the God of the future.
Oh, that's great. Here we are, almost to Christmas. Can you believe that? We are almost here. It's craziness. We're only a couple days away. And it always just feels like a little crazy, right? The last couple days, I went to the store this weekend, actually, just to pick up a couple things. Not even for Christmas, but the stores are just nuts. As everybody's realizing, hey, I'm out of time. I got to get this stuff for the Christmas dinner. I got to get some few presents that still need to be purchased. And, just the mayhem of all of that as we just get right down to the crunch time. I think I saw that Amazon workers are on strike and just all sorts of madness as we're trying to get ready to this. Get ready for Christmas. And here's the deal. I mean, ready or not, Christmas is coming on Wednesday. Its arrival is imminent, okay? Whether or not we are ready or not, it is going to come and arrive. And that's actually what we've been talking about over the last few weeks, is this idea of arrival. In fact, it's the meaning of Advent, is this idea of arrival or showing up. And we've been talking about this for the last few weeks. A little 4-week stretch here is what Advent is. It's a little part of the church calendar that leads us up to Christmas, that the church has used for a long time as sort of a period of reflection, a period of kind of sacred time to mess with our sense of the ordinary. And Advent, it just simply means the idea of arrival or coming, like the arrival of an important person. And in this series, we've been discussing that sort of 3 things happen. There's sort of a time machine that's happening during Advent, because we sort of do several things at the same time. We look backwards to the past, and we remember the arrival of God as a human in the form of Jesus. That's what Christmas is all about. And so we're looking backwards in time, remembering that. But then at Advent, we're also looking forward to the time of a new arrival, when Jesus will come again, and he will heal and restore the world and put everything right. And so we are looking both backwards and forwards at the same time, while also embracing the present and taking time to acknowledge how God is here with us already today. And so in Advent, we actually live in 3 spaces: the past, the present, and the future. And so during these 4 weeks, we usually focus on one word each week. Hope was the first one, then peace. Last week was joy. We had the pink on, and I saw some of you wearing pink throughout the week. That was great. And then today we wrap the whole thing up with love, which just seems like a good place to kind of finish Advent, with the idea of love. Now, before we get into the word love today, we want to look not just at words, but today I want to talk a little bit also about grammar. More specifically, punctuation, because punctuation matters, all right? I mean, It's not just words that you use, but when you're writing, the punctuation that you use also matters a lot too. Punctuation changes the structure of a sentence and thus often the meaning of what you were trying to say. The same words read with different punctuation can mean very different things. And of course, we've all seen examples of this, but let me show you a little bit today about how punctuation really matters. Often, commas. For instance, here is a sign in a bathroom that says toilet only for disabled, elderly, pregnant children, which, wow, that is a very specific type of child, a disabled, elderly, pregnant child. They might have just needed a couple commas in here to sort of clear this up. Here's another example of where a couple commas might be important, or one anyway. This is a doctor's chart describing a patient, and it says that they are unable to eat diarrhea. I'm pretty sure there should be a comma in there, and without the comma, that note reads very differently. Here's another example where maybe a couple commas could have been useful. It says that Rachel Ray finds inspiration in cooking her family and her dog. Now, I'm pretty sure this isn't meant to not have commas here. I'm pretty sure this would read a little differently if she found inspiration in cooking, also with her family and with her dog, right? And then, of course, this is the classic example of how commas save lives. The same words here, but with different punctuation. Let's eat kids, or let's eat, comma, kids. Very different depending on your punctuation. So, just a reminder that punctuation really matters, and how a sentence is punctuated changes the meaning of the sentence. And I want us to see that today in a few verses out of the Bible text, specifically out of a part of the Bible called 1 John. Now, 1 John is a letter in the New Testament, and I want us to see how there's one particular piece of punctuation, at least as it's translated into English, that in part of John's letter here, 1 John, that might be very meaningful. Now, before we actually look at this, a little bit of background. Our word for the day for this fourth week of Advent is love. And no section of the New Testament talks about love more than the letter of 1 John. I mean, it is just everywhere in the letter of 1 John, this idea of love and God's love. And it's the letter where we get the statement that God is love, not just once, but actually twice in this letter. And love is over almost every page of this letter. In fact, here's an example here just out of 1 John 4, 7 to 21. I just went ahead and highlighted every time the word love is used. You can just see that. I mean, this entire letter sort of looks this way. Love is just used over and over and over again in this letter. Now, this letter was written by someone named John, or at least it was credited to a person named John. But John in the ancient world was a very common name, and so many people think it's a different person than the gospel writer, right? There's a gospel of John, and many people think that this John is a different writer. Just as there was a John who wrote the letter we call Revelation. It was John's letter of Revelation. And that is probably a different guy than the gospel writer as well, because John is sort of a common name. So we don't know exactly who wrote this letter, but what's more confusing about this letter is many people struggle to even understand what this book or letter is all about. It appears to be written to some people who are believing some weird things that the writer wants to correct. In fact, most people think that this letter is written to people who believe in an idea called Docetism, which is the idea that that Jesus is fully divine, but not fully human, that he only appeared to be human. And so it appears that John here then, whoever this writer is trying to correct them. Now, we're not sure what the exact problem is. That could be it. But it's sort of like reading this letter. It's sort of like reading a Facebook comment without the original post, you know? I mean, you're trying to figure out exactly what the author is trying to address. But the important thing to know for our purposes today is that the author thinks that the people reading this have gotten something wrong, and he's wanting to correct them. Okay? That's the most important part for our purposes here today, not figuring out exactly what the thing is that's wrong that he's correcting, but you should just know he's trying to correct something that he thinks that this community that he's writing to has gotten wrong. And so we get a statement like this in 1 John 3, verse 19. This is how we know we belong to the truth and how we set our hearts at rest in his presence. Okay, now John here is trying to correct some problem, and he's saying, now here is how you're going to know you got it right. Okay, you don't have it right, so let me tell you how you're going to know you have it right. And it seems like this is a verse that's setting us up for an answer, right? I mean, it even ends, you can see it right there on the screen, it ends with a colon. And that is a critical piece of punctuation because a colon is not a comma, it's not a period. It is a piece of punctuation that says what follows after this punctuation will provide the answer to what we are looking for. Now, it might surprise you to know that this colon that we see here in the NIV translation at the end of this part of this sentence is actually added by translators of the NIV translation. This colon is not there in the original Greek. And without this colon, this statement might read a little differently. Now, most scholars agree that in this case, what the author is referring to here, that will how you know you're in the truth, is actually what comes before this sentence, not after it. Okay, most scholars agree that this shouldn't be a colon, it should actually be an arrow pointing the other direction saying everything that came before this is what should give you confidence that you are in the truth. And so the colon here included in the NIV translation is probably misleading, which is why I have entitled my sermon today, An Examination of John's Colon. Which, now that I say that out loud, maybe that's not the best title, okay? Let's come up with a different one. How about this? What goes into John's colon is more important of what comes out of it. Nope, no, I can hear it. Nope, that one's not good either. All right, that one totally stinks. Oh, that's nice. You see, it's hard being a preacher. I mean, there's all this pressure to come up with these clever titles, and then, they don't mean what you think they mean. All right, so let's scrap that all together. Let's just give it a new title. Let's just call it something. Let's stay away from the colon. Let's just call it this, John's Trifecta of Love. Okay, here's what I want us to see today as we examine John's colon. I want us to see 3 key things about love, and then we'll tie it back to the punctuation. And here's the first thing in John's letter that we see here, and that is the imminence of love. Imminence, its importance, its priority. The big question here is, where does love rank? How important is it? And just a few verses before our verse here that we read that has the weird punctuation in it, we start out this idea, this stream of thought in 1 John 3:11, where the writer says, "For this is the message you heard from the beginning, we should love one another." The author's saying, this is what you heard from the very beginning. In other words, this is what is of first importance. The idea here of it being something you heard from the very beginning has to do with its priority. In fact, another translation, a more modern one, The Voice, I think translates this really well. So we get the idea of what the author is mentioning here is not just that you heard it first, but because you've heard it first and from the very beginning, that it's something of a higher priority. The Voice translates it this way: the central truth, the one you have heard since the beginning of your faith, is that we must love one another. You see, this author is saying, this is the central message. It's what you've heard from the beginning. Love. In other words, not everything is of equal importance. Some things rank higher, and what ranks highest, has the most eminence, is love. Now, This shouldn't surprise us. I mean, Jesus said something similar, right? When he summed up the whole law in Matthew 22, it says one of them, an expert in the law, tested him, that's Jesus, with this question, Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? It's a question of eminence. Well, which law ranks highest? Then in verse 37, Jesus replied, Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. The question is, what has the most eminence? What has the highest priority? And Jesus says, everything hangs on love. Love of God and love of people. You see, you could get a lot of things right, but if you miss love, it's all wrong. Because love has the highest priority. It is at the very top of the flow chart. It is more important than right theology or how you were baptized or how you vote. What's most important is love. It is the central truth that God himself is love and we are to imitate him. It's so sad that we miss this, isn't it? So much hurt is caused by people who say they love God but just don't love others very well. And so, I want to err on the side of love. There's all sorts of things I'm sure I'm wrong about. I wish I knew what they were today. I would change them, but I don't. There's all sorts of things I've discovered over time that I was wrong about and had to change my mind about. And so I assume that some of those things are still true today. And so I know I'm going to make some mistakes, but if I'm going to make mistakes, I want to err on the side of love. Why? Because it has eminence. It has the highest priority. It's why in 1 Peter 4:8 it says, above all, love each other deeply because love covers over a multitude of sins. Now, that's kind of a tricky verse. I'm not sure all completely what that means, but I think it means I am going to err on the side of love because you can mess a lot of things up, but if you love, well, you're on the right path. And that's a pretty good reminder at Advent that love is primary. Now, the other thing that the author of 1 John wants us to know here is that love isn't just imminent, that he wants us to see that there is an essence of love. In other words, what does love look like? How do we define it? Okay? But before we get to that here, let's talk about simply the evidence of love, okay? Which is, what does it prove? And 1 John wants to tell us that love proves something to us. Let's look here, verse 12. Do not be like Cain, who belonged to the evil one and murdered his brother. And why did he murder him? Because his own actions were evil and his brothers were righteous. Do not be surprised, my brothers and sisters, if the world hates you. We know we have passed from death to life because we love each other. Anyone who does not love remains in death, and anyone who hates a brother or sister is a murderer, and you know that no murderer has eternal life residing in him. The key verse here really seems to be verse 14, because we know we've passed from death to life because we love each other. In other words, the evidence of love is life. You see, the author here is contrasting two stories. One is a big story from the Old Testament about Cain and Abel. You probably heard of that one. It's the first murder in the Bible text. Cain and Abel both offer sacrifices to God, and for some reason Abel's is accepted and Cain's is not. And so Cain gets jealous, and he ends up killing his brother out of jealousy. And there's a comparison here for 1 John between Cain and Christ. Christ lays down his life while Cain takes another's life. And so what is love evidence for? Well, life. No matter what you say or where you go to church, the evidence of abundant life in you is love. Love, John wants us to know, is the evidence of the good life. Love confirms our connection to eternal life. Now, I know in Lutheran traditions, we're kind of this amalgamation of these two churches now. And the Lutheran churches have this idea of confirmation. My wife grew up Lutheran, and at a certain point, she went through confirmation. And it's an opportunity when you were younger, usually a teenager at some point. You kind of go to confirmation classes and you memorize certain doctrines and teachings, and you memorize parts of the Bible, and you just kind of get a little chance to learn a little bit about your faith. And then after you've gone through all those classes, the church confirms you. You are confirmed as a Christian. But John here says that the real confirmation isn't just what you believe, but whether or not you are saturated in love. You see, right thinking and beliefs, they do have some importance, but John thinks the evidence that we are truly disciples isn't just our thinking, but our action. Do we demonstrate love? And that leads us then to the final trifecta, the final point here from John, which I mentioned earlier, which is the essence of love. In other words, what is it? I mean, love is a strange word. It can mean a lot of different things, right? I mean, I love my dog. I love pizza. I love my wife. Those are kind of different. We use the same word for many different things. So John wants to make sure and give it a clear definition. And when he does, in the very next verse, he points it to Jesus. This is how we know what love is. In other words, this is the definition. This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. You see, John here gives us a definition of love. What is love? Well, John says it looks like Jesus. It's sacrificial. It's other-oriented. It's putting the needs of others above yourselves. And if you don't know what love is, John says, look at Jesus. It looks like him. One of the movies my kids loved when they were little is the movie Frozen. It came out a few years back now, and it's a story of two sisters, and one of the sisters falls in love with someone she doesn't really know, which is kind of funny, right? That's sort of the Disney, regular cycle, the regular pattern. Some girl falls in love with some guy she doesn't know. It's like Snow White, she's asleep, and some guy sexually assaults her and kisses her to wake her up. She doesn't know who this is, but it's true love, right? It just seems kind of naive, right? This idea of love that way. And that is Disney's normal pattern. But in this story, there's a sister who falls in love with someone she doesn't really know. And the movie kind of recognizes that Disney pattern in itself and makes fun of that idea. And so this sister actually goes on a search for what real love actually is. And this whole movie sort of redefines the classic Disney portrayal of love. And we kind of discover throughout this movie, which is creatively done, that love, as defined by this movie, is not a feeling or like a euphoria so much as it is a choice. And of course, Olaf, the snowman, steals the show. And he has a great definition of love. I want to just show you this brief little clip. Well, actually, if I show it, YouTube will probably shut us down. But you remember, Olaf breaks in. Anna, the sister, is held captive inside of the palace. And Olaf, the little snowman, he breaks in. And he starts talking with Anna. And he's trying to explain to her that maybe there's someone else that loves her because this other person has sort of put her needs first. And in fact, Olaf comes into this place that's freezing and he starts a fire. And he's a snowman, so heat's not exactly good for him. But he's trying to free her. And he's doing it even at the expense of him melting. And she looks at him. And she says, "Oh no, Olaf, you're melting." And he says, "That's okay. Some people are worth melting for." And then he defines love for her as putting the needs of someone else ahead of your own. And he tells her, "You are worth melting for." Now that's a definition that John could get behind. That love is the way of Jesus. John is going to tell us that God is love. But it's not just that love defines God so much as God himself gives definition to love. That love is seen through action. And this is what we are celebrating at Christmas. A God who moves in love, in action, becomes one of us, stepping into the human condition. And we look back to that event to celebrate, and we look forward to when he comes again to put all things right. But then we live in this present moment imitating that love, which is what the next section of 1 John says. If anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? So, dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and truth. You see, love isn't just what God does, but is what we are called to do. To love not just with the things that we say, but with how we actually act. To see the people around us who are worth melting for, and to spend our lives loving them. You see, this love is like this qualifier for John. It's the measuring stick, and it should move us, John says, to love like God loves. Now, the reason I walk through all that is because I want you to see all that comes before the colon punctuation that we see in verse 19. And it all leads to the statement in 1 John 3, verse 19, that says, and this is how we know we belong to the truth and how we set our hearts at rest in his presence. You see, this statement should have a period, not a colon. This is not a statement that tells us the beginning of how we know we're going to belong to the truth. It's actually the end. Whatever John is correcting in this letter, his answer to it is love, sacrificial, other-oriented, Christ-like, giving, radical love. And when it comes right down to it, he says, when you love like that, well, you'll know you've gotten it right. And you will rest in the presence of God. It's the heart of Christianity, and it's the key to seeing God arrive among us. A chapter later, John will say, beloved, since God loved us so much, we also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God abides in us, and his love is perfected in us. In other words, when we love, we see God. When we love, he arrives among us. Advent happens. You know, for many of us, it's hard to see God these days, right? I mean, it's easy to go days and days without thinking about God, or it's easy to feel like, where is God today? It feels like he's never involved in anything. But John tells us, you want to see God? Go and love. Love makes God visible. When you love, you make God seen. How will Christ arrive and make Advent? Through love. So as we close today, I'd like you to maybe close your eyes. I'd like us to meditate for just a moment. Relax wherever you are. Sit back. Take a deep breath. Close your eyes. Just take a moment to reflect quietly. And as you close your eyes, I'd like you to use your imagination. Imagine a poor couple traveling many miles. The woman is pregnant, looking for a place to stay. Love is about to be born, but there's no room for it. And what about for you? Is there room for love in your life? Has it been crowded out? Maybe it's time to clear some space for it to arrive. Advent is here. Love is both received and it is given. Love is received from God and passed on to others. you, as you sit here relaxed, are a conduit of God's love. And so I'd encourage you to open your hands, palm up, like you are receiving a gift. Allow yourself to feel the overwhelming, unconditional love that God has for you. Feel the warmth of God's love. There is nothing you could do to be loved by God more. So open your hands as a symbol of you opening your heart to receive that love. And now take your palms and turn them the other way and face them down. Because love cannot be bottled up inside. It is an energy that must flow through us. An unconditional love of God frees us to love others unconditionally. And so visualize yourself offering love to others. As you have received love, now make the choice to make room for loving others in your life. Every person you meet this week is a person who needs to be loved and has not been loved enough. And will you love them? And if you do, you may see God's arrival among us. We want to light our final candle today from the Advent season. This candle, it represents love. And as we light this final candle, I want to pray this prayer. God, we receive your love today. We allow it to shine into us and transform us. And we pray that you will make us aware of how to love others this week in the same way. Amen. We're going to go to communion now, and as we do that, the little video will play, and you're invited to take communion if you'd like to do that. And remember, God's love come among us. And that Jesus, as he came, showed what it means for a God to care about us, to step fully into our circumstances, to allow the worst of what we have let loose on this earth to rebound onto him instead of us, and that he triumphed over it, even though it killed him, by coming back to life, and now has invited us into living through his pattern of love as well. We want to remember his love and also make the choice to live into his pattern of love as we take communion together today. The little video will play. You can pause it at any point if you'd like to do that in order to spend some time in communion yourself this morning. Okay, let's go to communion, and afterwards we'll come back with some announcements. All right, we got a couple announcements here as we wrap up today. A lot of stuff going on near the end of the year, of course. I'm sure you've got a lot going on in your life as well, but here's a couple things that are happening with our community. First of all, we do meet normally on Sundays at 10 a.m. for our in-person gatherings, and you are welcome to always join us there. We meet at the Zion Lutheran Church building, which is just south of downtown Everett, an easy on-off off the 41st Street exit there. It's just south of Forest Park, and you're always welcome to join us in in person, although we are glad that you are joining us here online. If you'd like to stay up to date with things that are happening in our community, we do have a newsletter, but also you can follow us on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at The Gathering Everett, and you can stay up to date with some of the information that's happening through those channels. Student ministry is meeting today. They're having their Christmas party tonight at 6 p.m. downstairs. They're doing a white elephant exchange and having some snacks together and just a fun party. So if you're in junior high or high school, you are welcome to join them there. Our Christmas Eve service is this Tuesday night at 5:30 p.m. We're going to be kind of Christmas caroling together there. We'll have cookies and a cocoa bar afterwards. You can wear your Christmas pajamas if you want, or you can wear your fanciest Christmas Eve service, kind of however you feel comfortable. We'd love for you to join us there. It will not be online, unfortunately, so if you want to be a part of it, you can join us in person as well, though. Then this next Sunday on the 29th will be a liturgical gathering. It's the final Sunday of the year, and a lot of our volunteers are out traveling and doing things, and we just kind of usually take the end of the year to give a break to a lot of our volunteers who spend so much time helping out through children's ministry and music ministry and just kind of all over the place on Sunday mornings, and so it's kind of a break for many of them. So we're doing a much smaller, more liturgical service at 10 a.m. It will not be online, so next Sunday there's no online gathering at all, but if you do are looking for something to do on next Sunday at 10 a.m., you are welcome to join us for that as well. Then if you'd like to give, you can do that online. You can go to everettgathering.com/donate, and you can make a one-time gift or a recurring gift. I know as many of you have reached out and said, I need to make a final gift before the end of the year for some tax purpose stuff. You can do that on the online and just donate that way. Just make sure you do it before December 31st at midnight so that it counts for the 2024 tax year, if that is something that you are concerned about. And then finally, if you want to join our email newsletter, the best way to do that is just to message us on Facebook and give us your name and email address, or email me. My email's on the screen, and we would be happy to add you to our email newsletter that we send out maybe twice a month, just kind of recapping some of the announcements. Okay, I think that's kind of it. All right, we're almost to Christmas, people. So hopefully it's a great week for you. I pray that you will have lower stress. I pray that these final days you'll get ready in time, and however you end up spending this holiday will be something meaningful and beautiful to you. Like I said, we won't be here next week online, but first Sunday in January we'll be back, and it'll be nice to catch up with you then. Okay, have a great holiday season. We'll talk to you next time. Bye.